and I think we're live streaming. Yes. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, February the 19th at 4:03 p.m. And this is a meeting of the Public Safety Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee. Oh, okay. Let's try this again. Okay, we're going to start over because now we're being recorded. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, February the 19th at 4:03 p.m. And welcome to the Public Safety Subcommittee for the House Judiciary Committee. I'm Nicole Williams, your chair, and we have 3 bills on the agenda. I'm adjusting the format a little bit. I think what we'll do is we'll hear first from the bill sponsor and any witnesses or experts who are on the call as it relates to the 3 bills. And then after that, we will go into a possible vote at the end on all 3 bills, as opposed to voting after we've heard all 3 bills. I think we'll try that format and see how that works. So the first bill on the agenda is really picking up from where we left off last week, which is House Bill 195, which is the Missing Persons with Cognitive Impairment Purple Alert Program. And I do believe, I think I see Delegate Guyton on the call, that she is the lead sponsor on this bill. And I know there were a couple questions last week, and I believe Delegate Guyton has sent all of the members of the committee an email over on Friday, as well as I think earlier today, with some updates with regards to some regulations as it relates to the silver alert, which I know was part of the discussion last week. So I'm not going to steal Delegate Guyton's thunder. Delegate Guyton, if you want to go ahead and just kind of update the committee with the information that you've provided since the last hearing, and then we can just kind of take it from there and see if there's any additional questions.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope everybody did get, I know I spoke with Delia Pasture earlier and she didn't see that email in her email. So I hope that the rest of you did get a copy of that. What we tried to do was to answer as many of the questions that you had last week as possible with research that my office had done. We also actually went to the legislative library and asked them to look up the regs and they could find none. But when Chair Williams says she wanted me to update you, as of 6 a.m. this morning, that's when the website was changed. The Maryland, I think it's the state police website, I apologize. The state police website does now have much more detail on Silver Alert, and actually they have changed the regs from what they were Friday afternoon. So what they have done is they have added people with disabilities into the group of people that can be that can use this, that can be called out when they're missing by using the Silver Alert. So that is a little tiny bit of good news. The bad news is, in my opinion, it's still the Silver Alert. People are going to still be looking for older folks. And we won't have the opportunity to educate folks like we would if we were to put a new alert in place. But so I'm just going to leave it right there. And I am still hoping that you all will pass the bill as it was introduced to you. But I'm here for questions if you have any.
Okay. Thank you so much, Delegate Guyton, because yeah, I know that was part of what came up last week was that the Silver Alert can effectively do all of this, but that wasn't very clear in the regs. And so it sounds like that they've updated the regulations to remove the age requirement, but I think it still does not address individuals with developmental disabilities, if I'm correct in what I read earlier today. Okay. Are there any questions for Delegate Guyton? And I don't know if there's anyone else here on this bill. I know last week we had someone from the Maryland State Police, but I don't see them here. So Delegate Valentine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have a question for the delegate. When when you say regulations, are you meaning their policy and procedures for the state police? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to the regulations on the website describing the different alert systems.
Yeah, I think it's the COMAR regulations.
The
It was
COMAR regulations.
emailed.
Right,
Yeah, it should be-
right. And I guess the only thing I would point out is those literally changed overnight. And the reason to put something in statute is so that it can't change back overnight. So, that's what.
The reason I ask is I did a little research in the last week. I checked multiple agencies throughout the state, and obviously I can't check 140 or 150 agencies just to see how agencies in the metropolitan area, the Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland, Western Maryland, and all really talk about in their policies and procedures about different impairments, different things that this bill would be designed to capture that they're already doing. I actually talked to law enforcement in my district about this to see if there was anything else, as well as, for example, when someone falls under this category in Frederick County, a lot of times they initiate like criminal investigation division in the search, the different resources from aviation that I touched on and different things I talked about last week. So I really do believe it's captured. I think the smallest general order I saw out of the 5 or 6 agencies I checked on when it dealt with missing persons and specifically this circumstance was about a 10-page policy or procedure. So I just wanted the committee to know that there are a lot of steps currently in place that are taking place now throughout the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that according to our research and that of the legislative library, that they do not encompass this population the way we would like.
Delegate Simpson, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to make clear, you can change policies and you can change procedures at a drop of a hat, but you can't change regulations. Regulations have to require COMAR is through the Maryland Register, and you have to have a 30-day period of time in which there's a comment period and a public, post it before they're actually changed. So it doesn't change overnight, but it could have been something they had in place because they get published like each week.
Okay. No, that's correct. You are correct with that. And the link that Delegate Guyton sent, yes, it's the link to the Maryland State Police website. So I apologize for that. So I don't know how long that's been there or not, but there was another hand that I just saw up, I thought. Yes, Delegate Phillips.
Thank you, and I apologize. My audio is not working, so I had to dial in on another device
it's okay.
to
We
get
can
audio.
see 2 of you, so, but
I
that's
know,
fine.
right?
We got two. Two is better than one.
So, and we're in subcommittee, so I think we can be a little less formal. I did want to ask Delegate Valentine in his research, based upon what you just stated, it seems to me that there's a little inconsistency between agencies. Not all agencies are doing it the same way. Would this legislation help us to bring attention and to bring some consistency over public safety agencies?
I think they all look at the critically missing, and I think that's the component I'm looking at is when they're designated a critical missing, there is no age requirement. So that could be if you suffer from a cognitive impairment, that automatically generates different things that are set in motion, not necessarily an alert per se as captured under this bill. But I will say that they're treated differently. I mean, they actually go into specifications as far as not only the time of day, but it could be the weather. I know the deputy I talked to over the weekend said, when you have an individual walk off that may be suffering from one of these impairments, there's even a heightened sense, say the temperature changes, if it's under a certain temperature, if it's above a certain temperature. So a lot of these agencies are actually going above and beyond what would be called into this legislation. And the agencies that I looked up, I checked in Prince George's County, Harford County, Wycomico County, Calvert County, and Frederick County. Because I wanted to see if these investigative tools and resources were being used throughout the state, knowing that I couldn't touch on. And I know from my experience, my prior agency, our missing persons criteria was even more in depth than that. So I guess to answer your question, I think there's at least a baseline for consistency where some may go a little bit above, but all carry quite a bit of investigative work in these cases.
Any additional questions?
Delegate Guyton, did you want to respond to that?
I am sorry, I didn't hear all of it because I was looking to see whether we were actually talking about regs or something else, and we are talking about something else. At the very beginning of the Maryland State Police, it is not regs that were changed. This says that they have created in February 2024, which is right now, that they have created a designation of a multi-tier Silver Alert program. This is not in their regs. This is just something that they put up saying that they're working on what's on here. So I hope everyone will take a look at that. And again, it's not in statute and it's not even in regulation at this point.
And I had asked Delegate Valentine, since he's done some research about the consistency across various agencies within both state and local governments from public safety perspective, if everybody was kind of doing this the same way, and would this help to create some consistency?
Oh, thank you. And I apologize, I didn't hear that before. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point behind it. I think that Delegate Valentine made a great point last week on this subcommittee call that all of the locals were mostly doing this work themselves. And with this, they can do all the things they're already doing, but they also have a lot wider resource through the state and through the emergency management system that they wouldn't necessarily be able to access without an alert of this kind. So I'm sure they're all doing great things in their own ways, but this gives them more tools to be able to do it. So thank you. And thank you for that, Delegate Phillip.
Any additional questions, Delegate Phillips?
No, Madam Chair, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Pastor.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that there's some specificity, if you will, added to the Silver Alert. But just very quickly, since my conversation still with Delegate Guyton, I just asked 3 people who they think of when they think of silver, and they all very quickly said seniors. And so that's how we've sort of been programmed. I don't think we think of children and children with deficits. I understand that when someone is missing, it will be said, and I guess it will be said that it is a child. But whether it's with silver or purple, I don't care the color. I just really wish that there were some component somewhere along the line to give some sort of educational component. And I miss being able for Delegate Guyton to write an amendment that would have that in there, because I think people need to know some of the things for which they should be looking when we're talking about anything of this nature. And since I don't have to say, isn't that so, I'll just mute myself.
Well, you should say, isn't that so? But that's okay, though, Delegate.
Okay, isn't that so? And maybe none of you agree that it's important to have education. So here's my question. Do I really care if you agree with me or not today on this issue?
Thank you, Delegate Pasteur. I absolutely agree with you on this issue. And I think that's one of the main reasons for having its own alert, so that we can educate the public. But as I believe we discussed earlier today, I would be thrilled if this subcommittee wanted to add that amendment, that there must be some sort of public education around this. There should be through the regulatory system that they have to still put in place. But just to guarantee that that's a part of it, I think that would be a terrific amendment. And I'm sure that my Senate sponsor would approve of that as well.
Got it. That's right. And who's the Senate sponsor on this, Delegate Guyton?
Senator Ellis.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from members of the subcommittee? Nope. Okay. All right, well, I think this answers all of our questions, Delegate Guyton. Thank you so much for coming back and providing the additional information. We really appreciate it. And also, Ms. McCallowin, I believe, was your expert. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for coming back again this week. We really appreciate the additional information. So, all right, thank you. Okay. And then next we have, let's see here. So the next bill is HB 290, Delegate Grammer, who I see here. And I don't know if there's any individuals in the waiting room that are also here. Okay, there we go. I see Lisa Jordan coming in. Some of the other witnesses that we had were from the Maryland State Bar Association. I don't know if either Ms. Smith or Ms. Paris, Amanda Rodriguez from Turnaround Inc., or Melanie Shapiro. Okay, I see Melanie Shapiro here, as well as Scott Schellenberger, I think is who we're looking for on House Bill 290. Okay, Amanda Rodriguez is coming in now. Okay. All right, so Delegate Grammer, do you want to just give us a quick summary reminder of this bill?
Yeah, absolutely. So Maryland is a two-party consent state. What that means is that in any case of a two-party communication, you have to have the consent of both parties to record that. The problem is that in the commission of a crime, if a person uses, for example, their cell phone to record the communication, even though it's a completely legitimate crime, that communication is inadmissible in any case because of the two-party consent. So what this bill does is it creates an exception under the Courts and Judicial Proceedings article that makes it lawful to intercept electronic communication if a person has good faith belief that they or another person are in imminent danger of becoming a victim of a crime of violence, stalking, abuse, or violation of a protective order. So the folks that are with us today, if you want to give them some time, they could speak really to the need, the kinds of crimes where frankly they can't even bring a prosecution at all because the only evidence they have is a recording. But that's the summary of the bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Delegate Grammer. And I'm just going to go in the order in which I see the Brady Bunch boxes on my screen. So no particular order. First, I see Lisa Jordan. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Jordan. If you wanted to provide anything additional.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Grammer, for bringing this bill. Lisa Jordan with the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So we have at least 3 cases where someone has actually recorded their rape. So I'm not talking about an apology afterwards. I'm not talking about, something surrounding the crime, but they've actually had the presence of mind to hit the button on their cell phone and record the rape. And they're felons under the law. And the prosecutors cannot use that material. And, so few rapes are actually prosecuted. And I think that we all understand the real challenges you have prosecuting a crime that's often conducted in private. That, we really feel like this bill addressed the concerns that were raised before. So the judiciary no longer opposes it. The concerns about, it somehow being a reasonable standard is not there. The court would have to look at the actual facts of the case. Rules of evidence apply. I appreciate my colleague's desire to expand it to the public safety crimes of violence list. I do wonder if that's not an unintentional poison pill, as I am aware that I think your colleagues across the street may go the other direction and narrow the bill a bit. So I just offer that by way of information, not advocacy. But you passed it before. I hope you pass it again. It really is a very much needed bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then next, Melanie Shapiro.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee and Delegate Grammer for bringing this bill. I don't want to reiterate everything that Ms. Jordan already said. From a domestic violence lens, this is why we are asking for the public safety article definition, because it's limited to the definition of abuse under the protective order. Those are limited to certain relationships. And so not all domestic violence relationships would be captured by the definition in the 14101 crime of violence. So using the public safety article would expand it to include all assault sues. So for those dating relationships that don't qualify under the protective order statute, they would be encompassed in this. That said, this is a very important bill, and I leave it in the fine hands of this committee to determine the best path forward. I think it is important. Similarly, there are situations with protective orders and other domestic violence incidents that have been recorded and cannot be offered. And so we absolutely support the effort, most notably with the improved language. This bill has come a long way in the last couple of years from where it started to now. So we're comfortable with the actual language and having no unintended harm that could come to a victim. And so we definitely support it. We would like the public safety article definition, and for the reasons stated, but understand that this committee will make the best decision moving forward.
Right, and that's and sorry, I just had a quick question for you, Ms. Shapiro. That's section 14-101 is the addition. Oh no, that's what's in the bill already. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Oh, so you wanted to add, I think I have in my notes, section 5-101.
Correct.
See, okay.
And so it's just it's a different definition of crimes of violence, and that definition includes assault in the second degree, where the 14101 does not.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And then Delegate Pastor, I don't know if you have a question or if your hand was up from the last time. Nope. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. My name is Amanda Rodriguez. I am the Executive Director of Turnaround, which is the Rape Crisis Center for Baltimore County and City, comprehensive domestic violence provider. So we have also seen instances of both intimate partner violence and also sexual violence in which our clients have recorded the incident. We also have children of victims who have recorded the incident, none of which is admissible in court, as has been discussed. I don't want to repeat what Ms. Jordan and Ms. Shapiro have said. In our case, it's no less than a dozen instances of which this is a problem, and I certainly respect and thank the delegate for bringing this bill. It is a very important issue and something that we anticipate seeing a lot more common with our clients. They're absolutely devastated and shocked when they hear on the other side that both the evidence is inadmissible when they've, in some cases, risked their lives to ensure that it's recorded. And then also, not just that, but it makes them a felon potentially. And our clients, our staff are also not even able to listen to it to assist them kind of in processing it because of what it is. So based on that, we certainly think it is a worthy endeavor, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And State's Attorney Schellenberger.
Good evening, all. Scott Schellenberger, State's Attorney for Baltimore County. Believe it or not, I first came across this problem in 1990. I had a child abuse case in which a young child was being sexually assaulted by her grandfather. And the child had a plug and play, if you all remember those. And she had turned it on before the grandfather entered her room and recorded the sound. And I can only tell you that I listened to it, and it was clear that this child was being sexually assaulted. Here we are, 30 plus years later. I have tried and tried and tried to change this statute and unfortunately failed. Do we really need a statute where in section 10402, it talks about it is unlawful under this subtitle for an operator of a switchboard? It actually makes reference to a switchboard in the statute. What happens now in this day and age when something happens in front of all of us? The first thing that happens is everybody pulls their phone out. And it happens on the street, it happens everywhere. It is just a natural reaction nowadays because we have access to these phones. But yet you can commit a violent crime, pull out your phone and record it. And if you have the audio on, you have not only have not inadmissible evidence, you have committed a felony. So House Bill 290, while I tried to get rid of all of the stuff of 10402, I recognized several years ago that I had to take baby steps. And certainly House Bill 290 is a very reasonable baby step in making sure that we get the best evidence. Just think about it. We are requiring police officers to have body cameras, which is absolute proof that that's the best evidence. But yet, if you're being abused by someone, recording it is against the law. We have got to get out of the past. We have got to get into the present. This is just a baby step forward that I support wholeheartedly. And I thank you all so much for the time.
Thank you. Delegate Grammer, I do have a question for you because Ms. Shapiro did bring up, and I think this was in her written testimony as well, about the adding of section 5-101C to the bill. Is that something that you would be favorable of, or do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm fine with it. Frankly, I think we ultimately go significantly beyond that. My concerns align kind of with where Ms. Jordan is, that we're hearing that the Senate wants to go the other way. So, I'll yield to the committee here. I have the feeling that this is going to conference and we can work it out. Let's just work it out in the long run.
Okay. And when you say go the other way, you just mean more narrower in scope.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll defer to you, whatever you all want to do if we're going to move this one.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for either Delegate Grammer or for any of Delegate Valentine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is on the public safety crime of violence that we've been talking about. My version does not have this. Is this an amendment that's being discussed, or is this something, I don't have a copy of an amendment to include that?
It's not an actual amendment. It's a proposal by Ms. Shapiro.
Okay, so then my question to Ms. Shapiro is, under the public safety, would that incorporate all second-degree assaults regardless of relationship, correct?
That's correct.
So that could be just two individuals down on the side of the street, unknown to each other, and this could be taped.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Rodriguez, you mentioned that because of the way the law is currently written, your employees are unable to assist clients because of the fact that this is a crime. Because it's a felony. Even if that were to change, I mean, there isn't any proposal to remove this as a crime. So I guess that would occur even with these changes made to the bill. They would still have that inability to assist the clients. Is that correct, or?
Well, I think if it's in the instance in which it would be assisting them for court, I don't know that we would have as much of a struggle. I think the issue now is it's a felony, and my staff would essentially be potentially implicated in that. So for liability reasons, I tell them specifically not to listen to anything that's recorded that's coming from a client, if it involves recording someone else.
Got it. But if this were to pass, and if it's a crime of violence, then they would be able to listen to it. But if it was some other type of crime, they would not.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Schellenberger.
And I'm sorry, I missed one point. So the reason this is the problem is because Maryland is a two-party consent state. 38 states are one-party consent. 38 states, which means there are 38 states that don't need a bill like this, which is why it's entirely reasonable to take this little step forward. And thank you for giving me the time to say another thing.
No problem. And I think we have maybe another bill before the full committee to address that concern as well. But yeah. All right. Any additional questions for either Delegate Grammer or Ms. Jordan, or Ms. Shapiro, or Ms. Rodriguez, or State's Attorney Schellenberger? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate the information and the feedback. Okay. All right. And then the last bill we have before us is, I see Delegate Attar is here. for House Bill 421, which is the use or possession of a machine gun and the commission or attempted commission of a felony. And so thank you, Delegate Attar. I don't have any witnesses listed on my sheet.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think you're frozen. Did I interrupt you? Is she frozen for everyone or just me? Okay.
1 second, I'm gonna
You
go
want-
see what's going on.
Yeah.
I froze. Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just gonna ask Delegate Attar if you could give us a summary of the bill. I was trying to say to the members of the committee, I don't know if y'all can hear me or not.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That I know there was some conversation at the bill hearing about the term machine gun. Machine guns was actually in the law currently, guys. So that nomenclature is currently what's in the statute. So I just wanted to be clear about that because I know that was part of the discussion during the actual bill hearing, and I hope people didn't get confused by that. So Delegate Attar, if you want to just kind of give us a quick summary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So currently, as a law is written, is a person may not possess a machine gun or use or possess in the commission or attempted commission of a crime of violence. And I actually believe from the research I was doing that this may just be an oversight. It doesn't include in the crime of a felony. So this just adds the word felony. And that would be, for example, if someone commits a possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics with a machine gun, that it would fall under this law.
Thank you. And are there any questions for Delegate Attar? No. Okay. I guess, have a few questions, and I know you had mentioned, and I saw in some of the written testimony that this was just kind of more of a technical fix, in your opinion. Oh, I see Delegate Phillips has a question. Okay, I'll let Delegate Phillips ask his question, and then I'll go ahead and ask the question I had.
It's not so much of a question. I really and I appreciate Delegate Attar for kind of sharing what's in 4204 and 4404. The language that you propose is almost exactly like the language in 4204. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And 4204 deals with firearms generally.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure I was reading that the same way, which gives me a lot more comfort in moving forward on this bill. So thank you.
Gotcha. And actually that leads, I guess, segues into my question, Delegate Attar, because you did compare it to 4-204. I guess my only sort of question or concern, so in 4-404, it states a person may not use or possess a machine gun in the commission or attempted commission, and you add in felony or a crime of violence, versus 4-204 states that the person may not use or possess the handgun, I'm paraphrasing right now, in the commission of a felony or crime of violence. So 4-204 doesn't include the portion about attempted commission. And so I was wondering if you have a comment about that, because I did notice that kind of difference between the two statutes.
Yes, I did see that as well. And right now, I wasn't changing those words. It's just the way the law is written for 4404. It includes attempted commission. So if you're attempting to commit a crime of violence currently, so that's why I didn't change it and I just included felony. But I understand if this committee wants to mirror it to 4-404, you would have to change it to remove that.
Okay. All right. And that's something you would be okay with if the...
That's fine. If this committee believes that's what's best to do, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Oh, Claire, I see. Yes.
I just wanted to mention that attempts are baked into the definition of crime of violence.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
that would be included. Attempts
okay.
would be included.
Got it. Even if it were to remove, it would still include it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And are there any other questions? Delegate Phillips, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you have anything additional. No. Okay. Okay. Any other questions from any other members? Okay. I think that was really, those were all the questions I had on my little sheet. So, and I think you mentioned what the intent is. Oh, I guess my one question I had during the testimony, I apologize. It was talked about, I guess, kind of the instances that this occurs. And I was just wondering, and it was specifically the testimony was solely related to Baltimore City. But I was wondering if you may know kind of more globally across the state, how often this occurs, how often do the police come into interaction with machine guns or assault rifles or however you like to describe them in these types of cases. I know Ms. Lipscomb mentioned that there was about 2 that had occurred in Baltimore City in the last 2 weeks, but I'm also just trying to get a sense about other parts of the state, how often this occurs.
So I actually don't have an answer to that, how often it occurs. From me, and this is an educated guess just from speaking to people, I was told every so often you find a machine gun, and many times people that have a machine gun are also, they have drugs on them and things like that. But I can't give you an exact number. It's more so like what Ms. Lipscomb was saying, that it happened twice in the last couple weeks. I actually think she had corrected herself that it wasn't even in the last 2 weeks. I think it was even more time than that. It wasn't twice in the last couple weeks. But I think she was just talking about guns in general. Machine guns, it happens a lot less often.
Okay, most of the time it's usually with a handgun.
Many times, but then as we've seen, unfortunately, sometimes we do find throughout the state, and I know in Baltimore City as well, that people are carrying around these real machine guns.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's it for all of my questions and just checking to see if members of the committee have any questions. Nope, not seeing any. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Okay. All right. So, like I said, we'll go back and circle back on the bills. The first one again was House Bill 195, which is the bill from Delegate Guyton, Missing Persons with Cognitive Impairment Purple Alert Program. And I don't know if folks want to discuss first or if we should just, if there's any discussion on this. Okay, everybody's
Move favorable.
Second.
okay. It's been properly moved in second. Doesn't sound like there's any discussion on the bill. Okay, so we will go ahead and take a vote. And I guess I'm trying to remember how we did this before. I guess I call the roll, huh? Okay. I don't see Delegate Conway, but I'll call Delegate Conway. No. Okay, Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Munoz.
Yes.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson. Oh, you know what, guys? I'm so sorry. I just realized we went into the vote. There are amendments on this bill. Is that correct, Claire?
Yes, there are 3 amendments, and Delegate Guyton didn't talk about them today. And then she also kind of made a suggested 4th amendment.
Well, we only
But
have
that's not in writing.
Yeah,
But
we
she
only
did initially submit 3 in writing.
Okay. All right. So I apologize. I think we have to vote on the amendments first. Is that correct, Claire?
Yes, that's usually how it's done.
Okay. So I apologize, guys. All right. So there are 3 amendments. I don't know if we need council to summarize the amendments. Do people need a summary of the amendments? Yes. Okay. I'm hearing some head nods. Claire, can you summarize the amendments? The first one I have in front of me is Amendment 133629/1. And Claire,
can you just give me a couple seconds? I have
sure,
to
no problem.
pull these up.
Okay.
Madam Chair, were all of these amendments offered by the bill's sponsor?
They were all offered by the bill sponsor. Yes. And I think she had testified last week, some of the amendments were to kind of address some of the concerns that was in some of the written testimony from some of the advocates. One was with regards to some concerns that the National Federation of the Blind had. So adding them into the bill, I mean, you'll see that in the amendment I just first mentioned to Claire, adding in who is deaf, blind, hard of hearing, or late deafened. I think the Second Amendment is a tactical amendment. And then the Third Amendment that was offered by Delegate Guyton was to address some concerns about the definition of mental disorder and to use the definition as stated in section 10-101 of the Health General article.
Delegate Williams, I think you just summarized the three amendments collectively pretty well. The first one just adds deaf and deaf-blind people, and then there's a technical change, and then there's the defining mental illness.
Okay. Are there any questions about the amendments? Okay, we'll do a voice vote on the amendments, all those who, and I'll just take them all three collectively if that works for everyone on the committee.
Madam
all those
Chair, I
in
move the amendments.
Is there a
Second.
All right. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposition to the amendments? Okay, it seems like the amendments pass. All right, sorry about that. Now moving on to the bill as amended. Is there a motion to move favorable as amended?
Move favorable as amended.
All right.
Second.
Second.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do the call again. Delegate Conway. Nope. Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Munoz.
Yes.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson.
Yes.
Delegate Taylor.
Yes.
Delegate Tolles.
Yes.
Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes.
Delegate Valentine.
No.
All right, and so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 favorable with amendment and 1 nay, so the measure passes. Okay. All righty, moving on then to House Bill. The next one is Delegate Grammer's Bill 290. And I do not have any amendments to 290. Is that correct, Claire?
That's correct, except for the verbally suggested amendment from Melanie Shapiro about using the public safety article definition of crime of violence instead of the criminal law article. And I just wanted to mention with regard to that, it's not simply that the public safety 5101 definition includes everything that's in criminal law article 1411 plus second degree assault. There's some other things. The definitions have several differences. There's several things that are in the public safety article definition in addition to a second degree assault that are not in 14101, and 14101 has some things that are not in public safety 5101. So, I mean, you could possibly say, you could probably cite them both in the bill.
Okay.
That, I mean, that's one possible option if you wanted to include the second degree assault.
Got it. Okay, Delegate Munoz, I see your hand.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the bill without amendments.
Out the amendments. Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to move the bill without the proposed amendment to add in checks. Public safety article section 5-101C. Is there any discussion about that? And I think everyone just heard Claire mention that there's differences in both sections. Delegate Crutchfield.
You know, I would suggest just adding in the additional section so that we can cover more. And I think the rationale that was given was a good one to do that.
Yeah, I think so too. Any other discussion? Okay, so the motion that is on the floor, I just want to make sure I'm clear, is to move the bill without an amendment. Hopefully I'm characterizing that correct, Delegate Munoz. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay.
Does moving it without the amendment, does that take into account what Delegate Crutchfield just said? I guess I'm just a little confused.
No, it does not. So if we move the bill without the amendment, we would be moving the bill without adding in that public safety article, which would include second-degree rape, which is what was discussed earlier by Ms. Shapiro.
And what I think I heard the bill sponsor say is that he was okay with that. At the same time, it doesn't appear that the Senate is willing to move in that direction. So we then leave it to conference. I think that's what I heard.
That's what I heard as well, Delegate Phillips.
Yeah, and I heard one of the proponents say that adding that would include a poisoned pill into this bill. And so we may lose it altogether because we've passed it before, but it's never gotten out.
I want to come back to that point, Delegate Munoz, you just raised, but I see Delegate Simpson's hand, and then we'll come back to the poison pill. Delegate Simpson.
I guess my only question is, we really don't know what the Senate is doing and where this is going to kind of go, because there are a lot of recommendations that were in the testimony about adding stuff, and the concern that it's still a felony. So if an individual wasn't proven as such, then the person who was recorded could then go back to the victim and sue them. I mean, that was as part of the testimony.
Right. If it's determined that the matter at hand is not a crime of violence, then in theory, that person would be guilty of a felony.
Yeah, I heard at least 8 or 10 times about felony, 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 and it's.
Okay. I do want to go back to Delegate Munoz's point, and I guess, I don't know if you can elaborate on that a little bit more, Delegate Munoz, about it being a poison pill. What aspect would be a poison pill and why?
Well, I just heard that we've moved this before in its current posture, and all indication coming from the Senate, which has killed it in the past, is that instead of being amenable to expanding the bill, like this possible amendment would do, they're more inclined to narrow what's currently in the bill. And so I think if we could take a baby step in the right direction and protect people in these situations, I think that that would be the best move to make. But if you want to look at the amendment, Madam Chair, please let me know and I will withdraw my motion to move the bill without the amendment.
All right, any other discussion? Okay.
It doesn't look like it moved last year. I mean, when I click on last year's bill, it didn't get out of committee.
Maybe it was in 2022, because it was, I know we've had this bill a couple years now in a row. I feel super familiar with it. So I don't know. Well, why don't we do this? I would like the amendment in the bill to make it all encompassing, so we can ensure that we're including all crimes of violence. I think that's a really important thing to do, because we don't want individuals, this is just me talking, recording things, hoping that they're trying to gather evidence to strengthen their case, and then turn around and now they're found guilty of a crime, because we've missed one crime of violence that's a crime of violence in one place, but not a crime of violence in another place, which might go to a larger, broader work group we can have about cleaning up our code broadly, but that will take a much longer concerted effort on everyone's part to kind of fix these random differences. Delegate Crutchfield, I see your hand.
Yeah, and we could also think about just adding an assault, into it versus the
Second-degree
whole.
assault.
If that might be a way to get this moving too.
And I would keep it a little bit more narrow as well, which I think goes back to Delegate Munoz's concern.
Would it make sense to move the question and see what the Senate does? I don't know the procedure here.
Well, technically we have a motion on the floor to move the bill without the amendment. So we need to address that. And I don't know if Delegate Munoz is willing to withdraw.
Madam Chair, I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, thanks. So I think what we'll do then is, Claire, how does everyone feel with just the amendment for just second-degree assault? I don't know if Delegate Crutchfield.
So I guess this is a question for Claire. Would that be enough to really get to our crimes of violence? I mean, the assaults, all the domestic violence stuff will be covered if we add that in, correct, Claire?
I mean, it's my understanding that Ms. Shapiro was that was particularly important to her as the representative of the Domestic Violence Coalition. So we could just add that in on page 2 of the bill, where the new language is, and where it says a crime of violence as defined in 14-101 of the criminal law article. After that, just add second-degree assault under 3203 of the criminal law article. And so make it 5 items instead of 4.
And if we make that one change, Claire, would that encompass then kind of all the, I'm speaking very broadly, domestic violence type categories then?
That's my understanding. I mean, it's my understanding that a lot of times in, domestic violence cases, the charge is second-degree assault. Now, of course, if it's some more serious injury, such as strangling, that would be first-degree assault, and that would be a crime of violence.
Okay.
So I think by adding second-degree assault, you would pretty much capture, the waterfront of domestic violence type crimes.
Okay. All right. Well, can we do an amendment, Claire, and then revisit this bill next week to vote on the amendment in the bill just to add in second-degree assault?
You could do that, or we could just vote. I mean, I think that's, pretty clear and understandable by everybody to do it verbally. But if you'd prefer just to see it in writing and wait until next week, that's fine also.
I'm good with doing a motion on the amendment.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just do a motion on the amendment to keep this moving.
Great idea, Chair.
Okay. All those, are you going to do, we need a motion in a second.
Motion on the amendment.
Second.
Second.
Second. All right. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. And then I will entertain a motion on the bill as amended.
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. And then I will do the roll call. I will start with Delegate Conway. Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Munoz.
Yes.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson,
Yes.
Delegate Taylor,
Yes.
Delegate Tolles,
Yes.
Delegate Tomlinson,
Yes.
and Delegate Valentine.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify? I have my hand up, but I don't think you
Oh, I'm
see
so
me.
sorry.
That's okay. I just want to clarify. This is to vote to include any second degree assault, correct?
Correct, just second degree assault. We're not including the whole list of 5-10C, 101C.
But the second degree assault statute for any type of second degree assault, whether it be domestic related or any type of
Correct.
relation. Okay, I vote no.
Okay. All right. The measure passes favorable with the amendment. Okay. All right, and then the last bill that we have is Delegate Attar's bill, House Bill 421. I don't know if folks have any comments about that. Like I said, the only comment I made was the attempted commission, but I think council kind of clarified that regardless, that would be included. Is that correct, Claire?
Yes, the definition of crime of violence is like a laundry list of different crimes. And then at the very end, it says, or an attempt to commit any of the above crimes.
Okay.
So attempts would be included automatically.
Okay. So then in theory, this amendment to 4-404 would be the same as the language in 4-204 then.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I would move favorably, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, and there are
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a question.
Oh, yes,
So
Delegate.
what did we just do? We took out attempted commission? Is that what I heard us
No,
do?
we didn't do anything. We have
Okay.
not made any amendments to the bill. It was the
Got it.
question I had when Delegate Attar was with us because she was comparing this statute to 4-204. And 204 does not mention attempted commission, but it does mention crime of violence. And council was saying under the definition of crime of violence, it includes the attempted commission of any crime of violence as well.
Yeah. Why is this needed? I guess I'm just, why do we have to do this if section B says a person who violates this section is guilty of a felony anyway? So is this language really needed?
Council, I guess you could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think all felonies are classified as a crime of violence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think from the testimony, what they were trying to capture was drug trafficking, which is not considered a crime of violence, but it is considered a felony. And maybe one of the questions maybe that might be helpful is, are there any, besides drug trafficking or intent to distribute, are there any other felonies that are not included under crime of violence that we would be including with this now if this were to pass?
Recording, wiretapping.
Thank you, Delegate Simpson. Besides wiretapping, is there anything else, council, that we would be adding?
So I have a follow-up question too.
And Claire,
Oh, were you asking me? I mean,
yes, I'm sorry, Claire. Yes, I was asking you. Yeah.
Any felony that's not a violent, that's not considered a crime of violence, and there's dozens or hundreds of them, just something that wouldn't be that would be more of a property type crime that's not really violent, but I don't know how that would really apply here if with a person who's using a machine gun to commit it.
Right. I mean, in theory, it sounds like with Delegate Simpson's hypothetical, I don't know how often a machine gun would be used to illegally record someone, but
So let's make it plain. Let's make it plain.
Okay.
Right? I mean, these are general terms: murder, robbery, first degree assault, sexual assault, fraud, drug possession or intent to distribute, theft of over $1,000. All of those, if I'm using a machine gun, those are felonies. We now include them and things like that.
Right.
Does that address it, Delegate Taylor? But those would be the types of crimes.
Yeah, like fraud is not a crime of violence, but it is
Right.
a felony.
Yep.
So if I had, let's say I had a machine gun in the trunk and somebody I was with was conducting a drug trade, but I'm just in the car. Like, do I now get charged with possession of a machine gun?
That's going to turn probably on the facts, right? And that would be the trier of fact who would make that decision as to whether or not you were in possession. So if you get in that courtroom and you say, look, I had nothing to do with it, didn't know that the gun was in there, then I can't be charged with possession of a firearm if it's not even my vehicle that it's registered to, right? But then the other party might say, oh, it was his gun. So that's going to be on the fact situation, and be for the trier of fact to determine. I see you. I know where you're going, but my sense is, with the intent of this, it is the active use of the machine gun to elicit a crime or to an attempt a crime, a felonious crime. So I could go into, I could be stealing a car, and as long as there's no one in the car, right, then that's no longer a crime of violence, right? The theft of a car in and of itself is not a crime of violence, but I'm using a machine gun to steal that car. It's pretty egregious.
And that's a felony.
And that's a felony.
And if I used a handgun, it'd be a felony as well, right?
Yeah, and that would be, it would already be, it's already a crime currently for the use of a handgun.
Right. And so that's in statute. What's not in statute specifically is the machine gun.
Correct.
And that's why she's attempting to add it. So 4204 talks about all kinds of
weapons,
firearms, but it does not include machine guns.
Correct.
Wow. Are we including it there too, in that piece of the statute?
It's already there. It's already current law.
I thought Delegate Phillips just said it wasn't, like the machine.
No.
Oh, machine guns isn't. I'm sorry, but the handgun is.
Why would
you all? I'm gonna have to hop off soon, so I don't know. Sorry to cut off, but are we still voting, or are we? If I hop off, there's no chat here, so if you see me,
for when a social worker,
FYI, I think my office sent a message that I have a stop at 5.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Taylor.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm on another Zoom.
Yes, we can hear.
but if there is a investigation.
Okay. Does that answer your questions, Delegate Taylor?
It did. I mean, why wouldn't we? I'm not a lawyer, right? This stuff is really new to me still. So why wouldn't we just add machine guns to the list of?
Because machine guns are not considered firearms. I think that's part of the challenge, which is why they're separate already in the law. So I think what Delegate Attar is attempting to do is to make this section to basically mirror the exact same language as it applies to firearms, which includes handguns, antique guns, all of those things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the bill. I don't see any additional hands. So we'll go ahead and go to a vote, if that's okay. All right. Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
I'm assuming Delegate Conway is still not here. Okay. Delegate Munoz.
Yes.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips.
Yes.
Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson.
Yes.
Delegate Taylor.
I'm a yes.
Delegate Tolles.
And then the
Yes.
Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes.
And Delegate Valentine.
Yes.
All right, and so the measure passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Favorable. Okay. All right. Well, those are all the bills that we have on our docket for today. We will meet again next week because we have more bills in public safety. I guess just stay tuned to your email and we will probably reconvene again next Monday at 4 o'clock for more exciting fun in the Public Safety Subcommittee. So thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.